My name is Eleftherios, and today the title of my talk is Financial Nihilism versus FOSS Culture, the Battle for Ethereum's Soul. I know it sounds weird, right? A bit of background on me. I previously founded the Radical project, which is a censorship-resistant and privacy-preserving network for code collaboration. You can think of it as a decentralized alternative to GitHub. It's a one of its kind. What Radical tries to do is basically ensure open access, open as in open source, everywhere, while at the same time actually trying to protect the privacy of the different contributors. Radical is live as of last month. We had our 1.0 moment. It's usable. It's not vaporware. Please go use it and let us know what you think. Over the last 2 years, I have been also contributing to a project that is called DRIPS, which is a decentralized toolkit for funding public goods that is focusing on dependency trees. And DRIPS takes a very opinionated take on how to fund public goods. The way the system works is that a funder organization, and this is a real case with the NS, selects a number of projects that they consider critical. This could be part of their developer grants. This could be part of their retro PGF program. We have multiple different use cases. But what they do is effectively they come together, they decide on which projects are important, they set weights for each project, as you can see behind me, and then after that they decide to allocate some capital. And that capital can go as a one-off payment, or it can take place using by the second payments. So that's the first part. But where DRIPS gets more interesting is that as we onboard these different open source projects within the system, what we do is we ask them to specify on-chain their maintainers, and additionally we ask them to specify on-chain their dependencies. And through that process, effectively, we're building a tree where capital flows through. And the problem that we're trying to solve is, I think, like best illustrated by this graphic. I'm sure that many of you have seen this, but the main idea behind this problem is that we have critical infrastructure out there on the internet, and many times you have a random person somewhere, somewhere in the world, like tirelessly, trying to keep that package, well maintained. And clearly, that's unsustainable, and we think that we have to do better. The North Star we have with DRIPS is this idea of what we call continuous dependency funding. What's fascinating, one of the many fascinating things about Ethereum is that you can have these programmable protocols that generate revenue. The model that we want to prove to the world is that you can have those DAOs and protocols that do generate revenue, but actually you can now have completely new value flows for developers. Imagine every time $1 is traded in Uniswap, every piece of dependency that actually powers that project to be able to receive maybe $0.001, right? We think that these are the things that actually are really possible with crypto, and we try to make that happen. But today I'm not going to talk to you about DRIPS and mechanism design, all of those things. Instead, I want to talk to you about some of the things we hear as we onboard different open source projects to Ethereum. And over the last year, we have onboarded more than 200 open source projects to Ethereum. And some of those projects, the majority actually, are non-crypto. They don't work in our industry, and many times they also don't understand our industry. Some examples that you can see behind me, this year we managed to bring the Rust programming language on-chain through a project that they have that's called Git2RS. We also managed to bring on-chain a really popular front-end framework that's called Svelte, and then many, many, many more projects. And as we onboard them, we actually get to talk to them. And when we talk to them, this is where interesting things happen. Because our worldview, living and breathing within Ethereum and crypto networks, many times is completely different to what they perceive. So today I want to share some of those learnings with you. And specifically, I want to focus on a few criticisms that we keep hearing over and over again. And I want to cut straight to the core point, which is by far the most important thing and the most depressing thing, I have to say, that we keep hearing from non-crypto developers is this. that basically, hey, Ethereum is interesting, but like it feels like a casino to us. And it's so disappointing, especially for people that we work in the space, we see the upside and the potential of that space, that this is still the dominant perception that people have about our space. And it's not just non-crypto folks. Like recently, many well-known crypto thinkers, like Polinia, a person that his writings have actually been educating us over the years. He wrote the exact same thing. He's like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm done with this. This space is just a casino. It gets worse every year, right? So there's something problematic here, and I wanted to share some thoughts with regards to how I'm looking into this and how I'm trying to explain this. And in order to do this, I had to start on this concept of financial nihilism. This is not a well-defined concept, but the way I understand it, financial nihilism is characterized by a loss of faith in established systems and a search for alternative pathways to security and fulfillment, right? Sounds familiar to a lot of crypto people because I think that many of us actually share the exact same skepticism towards systems, right? In addition, what's going on with people that have this view of the world is that they have this very short-term mindset. And where that's coming from is from the fact that they think that there's no solid foundation to trust long-term. If there's nothing, meaningful in the long term, of course, I'm just gonna be flipping coins day by day and moving from the one project to another. Nothing matters, right? So in finance, this frequently manifests on hyper-speculation, selfishness at the core, and then fundamentally nothing to believe in. As you can see, this is not just specific to our industry, but it has found a great home in our industry. What's interesting is that the same, like loss of trust, faith, skepticism towards traditional systems, we share that. I identify with that statement, but I feel that what a lot of the builders within the Ethereum space try to do is they try to build an alternative rather than actually say, screw everything. Everything sucks, everything is a Ponzi, nothing is worth doing anything, right? But while I feel that, within the Ethereum developer community, we do a lot of that, I think that has still failed to translate outside of the crypto community. So outside of the crypto community, we struggle to show many use cases over time that go beyond speculation. Right? The dominant view here is that, okay, you have the speculative stuff, and then you have some other things that come and go, And I feel that we really have failed to show in an engaging and retaining way this promise of the space. And in addition, we have other shit here, which is degen is now trendy here, right? Is this great? No, it's not. I think it's actually quite problematic, and it's quite problematic to a lot of young developers that actually don't have all the historical background. But these are, all of those things create this imbalance in perception and culture, and I really think that this is actually is hurting our space. And the interesting thing is that every cycle it gets worse, right? 2017 we had ICOs, probably better than 2021. We had many sketchy NFT projects, and this cycle apparently it's all about meme coins. And I'll say this up front: this isn't the talk where it says meme coins bad, don't touch them. Absolutely not. But out of curiosity, how many of you are holding a Bitcoin? Can you raise your hands? Okay, how many of you have traded a meme coin at some point in your life? Okay, almost half of the room. And how many of you have profited from a meme coin, even just slightly bit? Same. Okay, very interesting. I think this demonstrates the point. Meme coins do not per se mean financial nihilism, and I want to clearly demonstrate that point, but because I think it's subtle. The good case of meme coins, of course, is that, it's about a good laugh, right? It's about having fun. It's about getting creative with visuals. It's a fuck you to the status quo many times, or as we saw with the recent elections, it's a commentary on the state of things. And many times these things actually come even above profit. There's some noise? Yes. Do you wanna, should I replace this one? Okay, sounds good. Sorry for that. That will eliminate the noise we have. So yeah, so back to meme coins. So meme coins, the good case, right? So the good case is a lot more things rather than just profit. Many times it creates this sense of belonging and collective identity, connecting people across different backgrounds and geographies, right? And sometimes you even might make some money, as like, you know, clearly this like quick guerrilla survey that we just did here demonstrates. But unfortunately, I think that, you know, the use cases we've seen are still very few where that is what's happening. On the other side, the bad case, meme coins usually translate into hyper gambling, right? And many times, you know, they try to present these projects as fair games in comparison to, you know, every other Ponzi in crypto, right? But many times these games are actually rigged at their core and they masquerading as fair. And, you know, we can even go further, right? Like, you know, I'm wondering many times, is this what community can be? But I don't want to make a moral judgment on that one. But, you know, fundamentally, many of these cases leave you with like more loneliness, more selfishness, and more trouble. And, you know, if you think about where we are, like you probably have seen this, you know, right now there's like a dominant investment thesis even about the meme coin supercycle, right? And this is from a talk from an investor and trader called Murad Mahmudov. And he's making all sorts of really interesting points. If you haven't seen that, it's on YouTube. I highly recommend actually watching that talk because he really touches on a lot of interesting points. I don't endorse or believe many of the things that he says, but I think it's a very interesting analysis of what's going on in that space and why that meme coin supercycle might be happening. And he's sharing all sorts of interesting reasons for that. He has a set of reasons that he calls the internal to the crypto industry, like, for instance, you know, every VC coin is launching in Brazilian valuations, so of course, you know, meme coins appear to be a lot more fair, right? And things like that. But additionally, he has a lot of external reasons, which I find very interesting. And some of the things that he says is that, you know, you have accelerated prices of everyday goods, right? You have the fear of AI. AI is here to take your jobs. Go gamble, you know? You have, like, you know, wealth and income inequality, and many more things which all fundamentally lead down to this idea of, like, you know, crisis of meaning. And the thing that I start to think, especially as it appears that we're entering another bull cycle, is that if Murad is right and we are indeed entering in a meme coin super cycle, I don't think that, again, we're ready for this. We're just going to have another cycle like, you know, 2021, where we're going to suffer again to showcase what crypto could be beyond just a speculative use case. This is a belief from some of my friends at Fileverse that actually I think went quite viral a few weeks ago. We can remain cypherpunks longer than they can remain degens. I start to challenge that. I'm actually, you know, losing hope on this specific thing. In fact, what I see is that even in our own circles, I feel that, you know, the markets are absorbing us faster than we can provide an alternative. And I want to stay positive. So yeah, I've seen a lot of friends, you know, that went from, you know, interesting thinkers promising actually into like PvP sealers and yeah, YOLO, right? Yeah, something is problematic here. And we even keep telling ourselves even more funny stories about that stuff. It's great, we stress testing this infrastructure, right? Like, this infrastructure is so tested now because of all of those meme coins we've seen. And good examples will come. And, you know, many times I feel that the people that dropping the good examples will come keep pointing at Vitalik, basically redistributing many of the meme coins that people send to him, right? But, you know, that's not scalable. That's not sustainable. And of course, you know, it's a wider phenomenon, not specific to our industry, so let's keep closing our eyes. So all of that makes me think that actually there are conflicting cultures in crypto. I think we are at this point in time. And there are many reasons for that, but I think it's important that we get to recognize that, and we as developers actually start to get a lot more strategic with regards to the type of messaging that we want to communicate. I think what's going on is actually described really nicely by Vitalik. This is one of his older posts, I think earlier this year or later in 2023, where what he tries to do is that he tries to outline the different actors within the crypto ecosystem and their motivations. And you see clearly here that you have the builders, right? Then you have the token holders and the DeFi users. This at the moment is heavily skewed towards, the degen vibes, that, the after number go up many times at the expense of a lot of other things. And then the interesting thing from that is that he has this box here, the pragmatic users. And I feel that this is almost the core of it. What has happened is that we have priced out all of those pragmatic users, right? Most of them, for a long time, they couldn't use Ethereum mainnet. So Ethereum mainnet was not for them. So what happens is that you left with the builders, and then you left with the degen. And I think, somewhere there's also a bit of a clash. So there's a lot more that, on the criticisms. I'm not going to go through all of them. This is another common one, scammers paradise. I'm a developer and still, worried to actually interact with many of those dApps. There's a lot more to that. There's like Ethereum as masquerading as decentralization. I don't believe that, but I think some of the trade-offs we made collectively in the past with regards to bringing this infrastructure to the world are now kind of biting us, plus many other things that actually are happening on the DAO space. But I want to leave at least a few minutes and give you some positive stuff, right? So what can we do about it? This isn't a talk that tries to depress you. So as I said before, I think this whole idea about financial nihilism goes down to a crisis of meaning. So I think fundamentally what we have to do is we have to actually give people something to believe in, and not just give them, show them the thing. It's not about talk anymore, right? Like we've been building for a while. So we need to show them actually what's possible. And I think, the foundation for that actually lies within cypherpunk and FOSS culture, right? Again, cypherpunks actually believed in something. They believed in individual freedom, and they believed in empowering individuals in an increasingly authoritarian world, right? It wasn't about nothing, and it wasn't about hyper-speculation. In fact, most of them were actually highly skeptical about that, right? And I think Vitalik does a really good job of outlining values that we need to start again, go back to those roots and think about open and global participation. What is it that we have to say about that, right? Censorship resistance, auditability, credible neutrality, and a lot more. And most importantly, I think we need to stop this bullshit. I think we're educating people that degen equals cypherpunk, but it has nothing to do with each other. And I think it's important that, we call it out what it is. I'm not calling for any censorship. Absolutely no. Ethereum should remain neutral infrastructure. But I think we should also, start telling the story that we believe in. So I wanted to close with a few more ideas that actually we hear from builders, some of the positive stuff, some of the positive narratives. One of the most surprising things to me is that how powerful this idea still remains 8 years later. We talked to builders and they were like, oh, Ethereum, the world computer, that was exciting. But it didn't happen somehow, right? And I feel that we're actually quite close. This is from Gavin Wood's presentation back in the day about that. But back then, we described Ethereum as the stack of different technologies. And we're actually quite close to having many solutions there. We can think of Ethereum as a stack. We just need to tell that story. Same story. Ethereum as an alternative to big tech. That excites developers. I can tell you that people are super excited about that. But again, we're failing on them. Every solution we're building is kind of patched on AWS and Google Cloud and call it, right? But I think luckily some people start to organize, and I heard that yesterday. I wasn't here, but there was a massive Ethereum cypherpunk gathering. Now they're producing this great Ethereum cypherpunk starter kit, which actually starts to look like a stack, starts to look like a bunch of readings. It's a great starting point, and shout out to the Web3 privacy crew that is pushing all of that. I think it's more needed now than ever. And then finally, privacy. We globally, we are in peculiar, we're entering peculiar times. Privacy is more important now than ever. So yeah, I think we should have something to say about that, right? So finally some more ideas, smaller, but developer events should focus on our North Star. I think Devcon this year, they're doing a great job on that, so shout out to the organizers. I really feel that we're making progress on that. I really think that developer events should be more about show now, less tell. And I know that I'm giving you a tell today, but hey. Additionally, I think that we should have a lot more dogfooding. There's a lot of technology that we're building, but we actually, as the Ethereum community, we're not supporting that. We're going for the convenient solution. You know, maybe we should take these things a little bit more seriously. And then finally, we should set a higher technical standard with regards to our values and principles. And we should do all of those things while keeping Ethereum, the tech stack, as neutral infrastructure. That's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was, super nice to hear your view of both cultures, and also kind of interesting to see how many sort of meme coin degens are amongst us. Are you one?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was feeling really bad. I didn't put my hand up, but I mean, we make the excuses. Anyway. We go to the questions. So there's just one so far. I also have many, but if you want to add more, we have 4 minutes, so now's your chance. I think you touched on this a little bit in the talk, but one of the questions was, is it ethical to build apps that harness degen greed to fund public goods? Does the end justify the means?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm not, I think making moral judgments is a tricky thing. So I think it's a question that the person that wrote it needs to answer it for themselves and then act accordingly. I believe in the values of Ethereum, and that's why in my presentation, actually, I continue to say that, you know, neutral infrastructure is the foundation for all of those things. But I think, additionally, now we need to act, and we need to be a lot more tactical with regards to our communications. So yeah, I don't have an answer for you. I think this is a personal answer that you, based on your morals, you need to answer.
I think you made a comment during the talk, actually, that I sort of latched onto that I liked, and this was about Vitalik donating meme coins or whatever, and you said it's not scalable. I think that can also apply here. It's like, okay, fine, you can build apps that you can degen on to fund public goods, but like probably only you are going to do that, or like you and the few friends around you. Like, so it's probably not so scalable. And then, you know, by doing that, you sort of encourage this.
Yeah, no, totally. I think beyond what you say, and I agree with what you say, the other interesting thing that's happening is that it feels like the degen crowd is already looking elsewhere, right? There are competing blockchains, and you know, many of them start to look elsewhere. The reason for that is that what Ethereum provides is quite different, right? If you're all after like speed and, you know, SQL database and something that is hand-wavy, decentralized, well, you know, maybe this is not the place. And I think for many of the, you know, meme coin, degen, the nihilists, not all of them, again, as I communicate in my presentation, that might be a better place.
Good. Okay. So maybe, like, we have another 2 minutes left. One of my kind of things is, like, there is a bit of a push in this cypherpunk community and, like, the FOSS mindset, and like even within the privacy technologies, you start to see some projects or companies being a little bit criticized for not being like fully open source or having some licensing or whatever. Do you see this as like, basically like, why do you see the community sort of like becoming so strong now? Like, is it, was there a particular event, or do you have anything to say about this, like, the good tech that you want to see, but maybe isn't fully FOSS as well? So 2 questions.
The first part of your question, I think what's happening is that you have this increased monopolization of the internet, right? You have the cloud wars, and many of the conversations the open source community the last few years had with regards to licenses, is this open source, is this somehow open source, and all of that, they are a product of that thing. Right? Basically, what you have now is you have these aggressive players that actually go and deploy a service of your open source thing, and then the open source developers are left in a really weird position where they thought that they can make this sustainable, but now actually they clearly can't because they're competing against some of the most well-financed companies on the planet. So I think that the answer to this is, again, new business models, new value flows for open source software and some of those technologies. And it continues to be one of the things that excites me the most about the space, right? It's this whole public goods funding space. I think we made some progress. I think, there's a lot more to be done there, but I think fundamentally it's about that. It's about actually providing an alternative to those developers versus actually having to make those many times questionable decisions with regards to licensing and yeah, make those funny moves, basically.
Well, I think we're right on time, but I think this is a nice point to end it on. And like, I think if anybody can actually, make the progress in the right direction, it's exactly this cypherpunk community who does have a bit of a, I don't know, like not nicer way of thinking. I'm showing my preferences now, but like, honest ways of thinking, maybe rational ways of thinking. So it feels like a much more progressive way of thinking to me. So it feels like this is where progress can be made. So anyway,
hopefully.
We thank the speaker again. And